The earth burned as the Rizians drained her rivers dry. In mere hours, the reptilian alien invaders decimated humanity's home, siphoning every last drop of precious water with advanced siphons and tractor beams. Sergeant Eric Evans gaped in horror from high orbit, observing glittering columns of liquid snaking skyward into the gargantuan Rizian ships. Instruments registered plummeting global water levels. Oceans vanished. Rivers ran empty. Reservoirs became cracked, parched seabeds. Billions perished, cities fell, and civilizations crumbled. The sudden collapse of agriculture and infrastructure unleashed global famine and unrest. A final agonized transmission from the surface reached Evans through the chaos. His own wife and daughter had been killed in the panicked riots consuming Earth's dying cities. Grief and rage consumed him as the last of Earth's water drained away. The Rizians had gutted humanity's cradle in a single cruel stroke, but they underestimated mankind's will to survive and avenge. On Mars, the remnants of Earth's militaries and governments united, putting aside old rivalries. Brilliant xenotechnologist Dr. Samir Patel reverse-engineered Rizian hyperdrive and terraforming technology from recovered wrecks. Powered by fury and desperation, drawing on ingenuity born of eons of earthly competition, humans quickly constructed a mighty war fleet under the Human Reprisal Force banner. Every ship was armed to exterminate worlds, to track down the Rizians, recover Earth's water, and burn the lizards' planets to cinders. Captain Evans took command of the HRF's flagship destroyer, the Retribution. Her mission was no mercy. The Rizian ambassador's pleas fell on deaf ears. Humanity's blood called for vengeance. The Retribution led the charge as the HRF set out to unleash hell across the stars. There would be rivers of blood and worlds of ash to repay Earth's barren seabeds. The Rizians would pay. Humanity would have justice, or die trying. The soul of mankind hung in the balance. The Retribution blazed through the cosmos, her hull scarred but proud, an avenging angel of human wrath. Captain Evans stood on the bridge, hands gripping the rail as he stared out at the diamond-dusted black of space. The weight of 1 billion ghosts pressed on his shoulders, the ravaged faces of Earth's dead, the desperate struggle of her scattered survivors. Clues to the Rizians' whereabouts proved maddeningly elusive. The vicious reptiles guarded their secrets well, even under the most persuasive interrogations. Each raided outpost and defeated warship yielded only crumbs. Frustration simmered among the Human Reprisal Force, threatening to boil over. Some urged caution, but Evans and the wounded corps who'd witnessed Earth's fall drowned them out. Mercy was a luxury they could ill afford. Then a breakthrough, thanks to the brilliant Lieutenant Ava Patel. The captured nav computer was a treasure trove, its star charts laying bare the location of Rizia Prime like a cartographer's holy grail. But Ava's brow furrowed as she pored over the data. The numbers didn't add up. Rizia Prime alone couldn't account for Earth's stolen oceans. Evans overrode her concerns, hell-bent on bringing the fight to the enemy's front door. Rizia Prime shimmered like an oasis as the human fleet dropped out of warp on her doorstep. Sapphire seas and emerald forests, an aching echo of lost Earth. For an instant, the SimVid feeds fell silent, every soul transfixed by raw, ragged memory. Then cold fury crystallized and the moment shattered. Klaxons blared as the ship slipped into attack formation. Over Ava's protests, Evans positioned the fleet to rain orbital devastation until the Rizians relented. Only her 11th hour appeal to gather intelligence first stayed his finger on the trigger. If there was even a chance of reclaiming Earth water, they had to try. As the Retribution's gun crews sighted targets on Rizia Prime's gleaming cities, Lieutenant Chen and his Black Ops commandos plunged planetward, their stealth pods swallowed by the night. Scant hours remained until the ordained bombardment would begin. The clock was ticking. If Chen failed to uncover the Rizian secrets, 2 worlds would burn. Chen's mind narrowed to the mission as his drop pod knifed through the stratosphere, its ceramic skin blazing against the darkness. He reviewed the objectives with cold precision, already selecting targets, plotting routes, assessing the enemy's likely response. There would be blood and flames and chaos. There always was. As long as it got results, he didn't much care. The pod lurched as it hit the lower atmosphere. Chen felt the heat blasting against the skin, friction shaking his bones. He bared his teeth in a feral grin. Whatever the Rizians were hiding, he'd find it. And gods help them when he did. Above, in orbit, Evans watched the pods descend on the main monitor, their thermal trails searing the clouds. He drummed his fingers on the command chair, a distant part of him disturbed by how much he craved the coming violence, by how good it would feel to make the Rizians pay. Drop point reached, a sensor officer reported. Commandos deploying now. Ava turned to Evans, her face pinched with worry in the harsh light of the bridge. Captain, I really think we need to reconsider. Evans cut her off with a chopping motion. Enough, Lieutenant. We're committed. He leaned forward, watching the monitor intently. Now we wait, and we pray like hell Chen finds what we need. On the planet's surface, Chen and his team hit the ground running, boots churning the earth as they melted into Rizia Prime's darkened jungles. Whatever horrors the night held, they were ready. The Retribution's guns hung above like the sword of Damocles. One way or another, the Rizian's time had run out. Chen's boots sank into the moist earth as he led his team through Rizia Prime's dense jungle. The air hung heavy with alien scents, thick and cloying. Sweat trickled down his neck as he consulted the hollow map projected from his wrist device. 5 clicks to the capital, he whispered. Stay sharp. As they pushed forward, the lush foliage gave way to the skeletal remains of a Rizian village. Crumbling structures stood silent, their walls etched with faded murals depicting water-filled landscapes. Chen frowned, studying the abandoned dwellings. Sir, Corporal Tanaka called softly, you need to see this. She stood before a rusted water collection system, its pipes dry and useless. Chen's eyes narrowed as he took in the scene. They're struggling, he muttered. All this green, but they're dying of thirst. The team pressed on, the weight of their discovery hanging over them. As they crested a hill overlooking the capital, Chen's breath caught. The city sprawled before them, a gleaming metropolis surrounded by a sea of military might. Armored vehicles rumbled through the streets. Troops marched in perfect formations. Anti-aircraft batteries dotted the skyline. Chen's tactical mind whirred, assessing the defenses. They're protecting something big, he said. Velasquez, you're up. Hit their comm towers and power grid. We need chaos. The demolitions expert nodded, melting into the shadows with half the team. Chen turned to Tanaka. You're with me. We're going in. They slipped through the city's outskirts, Tanaka's hacking skills bypassing security checkpoints. As they neared the government district, explosions rocked the night. Alarms blared. Rizian troops scrambled in confusion. Chen and Tanaka seized their chance, scaling the palace walls. Inside, they moved like ghosts through opulent halls. Tanaka's fingers flew over her datapad, cracking encryptions. Got it, she hissed. Hidden bunker, sub-level 3. They descended, emerging into a cavernous command center. Hollow displays flickered, showing a vast underground network. Chen's eyes widened as he realized what he was seeing. It's here, he breathed. All of it, Earth's water. Tanaka worked feverishly, planting the tracking beacon. Uploading coordinates to the Retribution now. A klaxon suddenly split the air. Armored doors slammed shut. Chen whirled, weapon raised, as a towering Rizian stepped from the shadows. I've been waiting for you, humans, General Zaris rumbled, reptilian eyes glinting. Your infiltration was impressive, but ultimately futile. Chen's mind raced, assessing options. His finger tightened on the trigger. I wouldn't, Zaris warned. My troops have your team. Surrender now. Chen locked eyes with Tanaka. She gave an imperceptible nod. In one fluid motion, Chen fired at the ceiling. The distraction allowed Tanaka to send their data burst to the Retribution. Rizian guards swarmed in, disarming them. As Chen was forced to his knees, he glared defiantly at Zaris. It's over, he spat. They know. Zaris smiled coldly. Perhaps, but the question is, what will they do about it? High above, on the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Evans received Chen's transmission. His face hardened as he processed the implications. Earth's water found, but Chen captured. The crew waited, tension crackling. Evans' comm crackled. Captain, Grayson's voice rang out. Our guns are locked on target. Give the word, and we'll reduce that bunker to ash. Before Evans could respond, Ava stepped forward. Sir, we can't. If we destroy the water, we're no better than them. There has to be another way. Evans's heart made, weighing his options. The view screen flickered, and General Zaris appeared. The Rizian's voice was cold as he delivered his ultimatum. You have 3 hours, Captain, Zaris declared. Withdraw or watch your people die. The transmission cut out. Evans gripped the command rail, his fingers tightening. The fate of 2 worlds now rested on his next decision. Evans' fingers hovered over the command console, his face a mask of cold dedication. The bridge fell silent, every eye fixed on their captain. Sir? Ava pleaded, her voice barely above a whisper. Think about what you're doing. Evans didn't look at her. His gaze remained locked on the tactical display, where Regia Prime hung like a jewel against the void. He drew a deep breath, steeling himself. Fire, he commanded. The Retribution shuddered as her main guns unleashed hell. Lances of superheated plasma streaked through the atmosphere, punching through bedrock to strike the hidden reservoirs. The planet's surface erupted in a series of cataclysmic explosions. On the ground, Chen felt the earth heave beneath his feet. The Rizian holding him captive stumbled, loosening its grip. Chen didn't hesitate. He drove an elbow into the alien's throat, snatching its weapon as it fell. Move, he barked at Tanaka, who was already sprinting for the exit. They raced through collapsing corridors, dodging falling debris, the air filled with screams, Rizian and human alike. Chen's tactical mind cataloged it all, searching for an advantage. There, Tanaka shouted, gesturing to a breach in the outer wall. They emerged into chaos. The Rizian capital burned, its proud towers crumbling. Chen's earpiece crackled to life. Chen, you magnificent bastard! It was Velasquez. Rendezvous at these coordinates. We're getting out of here. As they fought their way through the dying city, Chen's gaze was drawn skyward. The Retribution hung there, wreathed in fire as she traded blows with the Rizian defense fleet. For a moment, Chen allowed himself to feel a flicker of hope. But that hope turned to ash as he watched the Retribution's main cannon align with the planet's surface. A beam of incredible power lanced downward, carving a molten furrow across continents. What the hell? Tanaka breathed. Chen's blood ran cold as understanding dawned. It's not just about destroying their water, he said. Evans is going to take it all. Aboard the Retribution, Ava stared in horror at the destruction unfolding on the monitors. She turned to Evans, who stood impassive at the helm. Captain, we have to stop this, she urged. We've made our point. Any more is just genocide. Evans' eyes never left the tactical display. And what they did to Earth wasn't, he asked, his voice devoid of emotion. Ava looked around the bridge, seeing the conflicted expressions on her crewmates' faces. Some nodded in the grim agreement with the captain. Others shared her revulsion. She straightened, squaring her shoulders. I'm relieving you of command, sir. This has gone too far. Evans finally turned to face her, his expression unreadable. Are you now, Lieutenant? Before Ava could respond, Grayson stepped between them, hand on his sidearm. Stand down, Patel, he growled. The captain's doing what needs to be done. The bridge erupted into chaos as officers took sides. Shouts and scuffles broke out across the command deck. In the confusion, Evans strode to the weapons console. Prepare the planetary terraforming driver, he ordered, his voice cutting through the din. Ava's eyes widened in horror. You can't! But it was too late. The Retribution's most powerful weapon hummed to life, ready to reshape an entire world. On the planet's surface, Chen and his team raced toward their extraction point, the ground fracturing beneath their feet. As Regia Prime died around them, Chen couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had been lost, not just for the Rizians, but for humanity itself. The Retribution shuddered as another volley of plasma fire erupted from her main guns. On the bridge, Grayson's eyes gleamed with cold satisfaction as he watched Rizian cities crumble on the tactical display. Sir, a sensor officer called out, we're detecting movement in the hangar bay. A dropship just launched without authorization. Grayson's head snapped around. What? Who? It's Captain Evans, the officer replied, his voice tight. He's taken a squad of Marines and Lieutenant Chen is with him. Fury twisted Grayson's features. Shoot them down! Belay that order! Ava shouted, struggling against the crewmen restraining her. You can't! A backhand from Grayson silenced her. I'm in command now, Lieutenant, and I will not tolerate insubordination. He turned to his loyalist. Take her to the brig. As Ava was dragged away, Grayson refocused on the planet below. Intensify bombardment of all major population centers. I want those alien bastards wiped from existence. Down on Rizia Prime's ravaged surface, Evans's dropship touched down amid the ruins of what had once been a thriving metropolis. The air was thick with ash and the acrid stench of burning synthetics. Chen was the first out, his weapon raised as he scanned for threats. Clear, he called, and the others followed. Evans emerged last, his face grim as he surveyed the devastation. We need to move, he said. It won't take Grayson long to realize we're down here. They pushed through the rubble-strewn streets, dodging pockets of flame and collapsing structures. The ground trembled beneath their feet as orbital strikes continued to hammer the planet. Contact! One of the Marines shouted, raising his rifle. A group of figures emerged from the smoke, human and Rizian alike, battered and bloodied. At their head stood a tall woman with close-cropped hair and the bearing of a career soldier. Jillian? Chen breathed, lowering his weapon. The woman's eyes widened in recognition. Chen, what the hell are you doing here? It's a long story, Chen replied. He gestured to Evans. We're here with the captain. Things have gone sideways up there. Jillian nodded grimly. You can say that again. We've got scattered units all over the sector, cut off from evac, and the locals. She trailed off, glancing at the shell-shocked Rizians huddled behind her. Evans stepped forward. Quartermaster Rhodes, we need your help. What can you tell us about Rizian defenses in the area? As Jillian began to brief them, a sleek hovercraft materialized from the haze. It touched down nearby, and a lithe Rizian female emerged, flanked by armed guards. I am Counselor Mela Finar, she announced, her voice clear and steady despite the chaos around them. And I believe we have a common enemy. Evans studied her warily. You're General Zaris's daughter. Mela's expression hardened. I am, and I opposed his actions, just as I now oppose the extremists who would see both our worlds burn. She fixed Evans with an intense gaze. There may yet be a chance to salvage this disaster, Captain, but we must act quickly. What do you mean? Chen asked. There is another reservoir, Mela explained, hidden deep within the northern ice caves. If we can reach it before your rogue commander destroys it. Evans exchanged a look with Chen. It was a long shot, but it might be their only hope of averting total catastrophe. Lead the way, Counselor, Evans said. As the unlikely alliance prepared to move out, the sky above them lit up with fresh bombardments. The Retribution's guns sang a symphony of destruction, each blast bringing both worlds closer to the brink of no return. In orbit, Ava Patel worked frantically to free herself from her restraints. She knew time was running out. If she couldn't stop Grayson soon, there would be nothing left to save. The dropship shuddered as it cut through Rizia Prime's turbulent atmosphere. Evans gripped the overhead rail, his squeezing hard. Chen crouched by the viewport, watching flashes of orbital bombardment light up the clouds. We're approaching the northern continent, the pilot called out. Sensors show heavy Rizian activity ahead. Evans nodded to Jillian. Time to earn our pay, Quartermaster. Rhodes grinned, hefting her rifle. Just like old times, eh, Captain? The ship bucked as anti-aircraft fire erupted around them. Mela's voice cut through the chaos. There! The mountain pass! It's our only chance! The pilot banked hard, skimming a jagged ridgeline. Grayson's forces gave chase, strafing the mountainside with plasma bolts. Evans felt the ship lurch as one of the engines took a hit. We're losing altitude, the pilot shouted. Brace for impact. The world tilted sideways as the dropship plowed into a snowbank. Evans was thrown clear, tumbling through powder and rock. He struggled to his feet, assessing the situation through the stinging haze. Chen emerged from the wreckage, dragging an unconscious Marine. Perimeter's hot, sir. We've got incoming. Jillian was already in motion, setting up a defensive line with the surviving crew. Mela stumbled through the snow, clutching a datapad. The ice caves. They're less than 2 kilometers north. We have to move. Evans keyed his comms. Patel, do you read? We need air support. Static crackled. Then Ava's voice came through, strained but determined. Working on it, Captain. Grayson's locked down most systems, but I've got a few tricks left. The group pushed forward, slogging through knee-deep snow as enemy fire peppered the ground around them. Chen took point, his augmented senses scanning for threats. Patrol, 3 o'clock, he hissed. Evans signaled to Jillian, who nodded grimly. In a fluid motion, she raised her rifle and dropped 2 Rizian soldiers before they could sound the alarm. Nice shooting, Chen muttered. Save the compliments, Jillian replied. We're not out of this yet. They pressed on, the howling wind masking their approach. As they crested a ridge, the vast expanse of the northern glaciers stretched out before them. In the distance, a dark maw gaped in the ice, the entrance to the caves. Suddenly, the ground trembled. A massive drilling rig crested a nearby hill, flanked by heavy infantry in powered armor. Evans' heart sank as he recognized the figure at the helm. Grayson, he breathed. The rogue commander's voice boomed across the tundra. It's over, Evans. Surrender now, and I might let your people live long enough to see Earth's revenge. Evans turned to his ragtag team. Jillian's face was set in unbreakable spirit. Chen's eyes darted, seeking tactical advantages. Mela stood tall, her alien features unreadable. Options? Evans asked. Chen's lips quirked in a humorless smile. Same as always, sir. We fight. With a nod, Evans gave the order. Hit 'em hard, hit 'em fast, for Earth, and for Rizia. They surged forward, plasma bolts sizzling through the air. Jillian's expert marksmanship dropped enemy after enemy. Chen ghosted through their lines, his stealth tech leaving a trail of confusion and death. Evans found himself back-to-back with Mela, her elegant Rizian weapon complementing his human sidearm. Your world, he grunted between shots. Your people. Why help us? Mela's eyes flashed. Because vengeance solves nothing. We must break this cycle, Captain, or both our races are doomed. A deafening explosion rocked the battlefield. Evans looked up to see contrails streaking across the sky. Ava had come through. The orbital bombardment ceased as Grayson's ships scrambled to defend themselves. Now's our chance, Chen shouted. Make for the caves. They sprinted across the open ground, Grayson's forces in hot pursuit. The yawning cavern mouth loomed before them, promising salvation or a final stand. As they plunged into the icy depths, Evans cast one last look at the devastated world behind them. Whatever happened next, he knew nothing would ever be the same. The icy cavern trembled as another bombardment shook the planet's surface. Evans steadied himself against the slick wall, his breath misting in the frigid air. Chen's augmented eyes glowed faintly as he scanned their surroundings. Movement ahead, he whispered. Friendly signatures. They rounded a corner to find a makeshift command center nestled deep within the glacier. Screens flickered with tactical data, and haggard-looking human and Rizian personnel huddled around portable heaters. Counselor Mela strode forward, her composure cracking for the first time. The reservoir, is it intact? A Rizian technician nodded, gesturing to a massive ice formation behind a transparent barrier. Barely. But if Grayson's forces breach our defenses... A deafening roar cut him off as the cavern shook violently. Chunks of ice rained down, forcing everyone to take cover. We're out of time, Evans growled. He tapped his comm unit. Patel, status report. Static crackled, then Ava's voice came through, strained but triumphant. Retribution is secure, sir. Grayson's loyalists are contained. We're moving to extract you now. Relief washed over Evans, but it was short-lived. A series of explosions rocked the cavern entrance. Grayson's troops poured in, weapons blazing. Fall back, Jillian shouted, laying down suppressing fire. Protect the reservoir at all costs. The next minutes were a blur of plasma bolts and shattering ice. Evans found himself shoulder to shoulder with Mela, their disparate weapons finding common targets. A familiar silhouette appeared through the smoke. Grayson, his face twisted with hate. "You've lost, Evans. Earth demands justice." Before Evans could respond, a blinding light filled the cavern. The Retribution's extraction beam enveloped them, whisking the defenders in the precious ice away from Grayson's grasp. Evans materialized on the bridge, disoriented but alive. Ava stood at the helm, her uniform scorched, but her eyes blazing with tenacity. "Welcome back, Captain," she said, allowing herself a small smile. As the adrenaline faded, the weight of what they'd done and what they'd lost settled over Evans like a shroud. He looked out at the ravaged planet below, his voice barely above a whisper. "What have we become?" Days bled into weeks as the human reprisal force regrouped. The mood aboard the Retribution was somber, the crew haunted by the devastation they'd wrought. Evans spent long hours in his quarters, poring over reports and casualty lists. A chime at his door roused him from his dark thoughts. Ava entered, her face grim. "Sir, we've received word from Earth Command. They've officially disavowed Grayson's actions." Evans' laugh was hollow. "Small comfort to the dead." Ava hesitated, then pressed on. "There's more. They're demanding the Rizian's unconditional surrender and the return of all water reserves." "After everything we've done?" Evans stood, anger flaring. "We've reduced their world to ash, Ava. There has to be another way." He strode to the viewport, staring at the wounded planet below. The stolen glacier hung suspended in the Retribution's hold, a glittering promise of rebirth. "What if—" Evans' mind raced. "What if we could use it to jumpstart Regia Prime's hydrological cycle? Create a new ocean?" Ava's eyes widened. "Sir, that's risky, unorthodox." Evans turned to face her. "Maybe, but it might be our only shot at salvaging this mess." The next hours were a flurry of calculations and heated debates. Hardliners balked at the idea of rewarding the Rizians. But when projections showed conventional transport to Earth would take centuries, Evans' plan gained traction. From the bridge, Evans watched as Ava coordinated the first stages of the rewilding operation. Specialized drones seeded the atmosphere with tailored microorganisms, while orbital mirrors focused sunlight on key areas. Weeks passed. Then a miracle, the first wisps of clouds formed in Regia Prime's barren sky. Chen's voice crackled over the comms from the planet's surface. "Captain, you need to see this." Evans transported down, emerging onto a rocky outcropping. Chen pointed silently to the horizon. There, glinting in the alien sunlight, was a ribbon of silver, the first new river on Regia Prime. As the fledgling ecosystem took hold, a new crisis emerged. The rising waters threatened to submerge what remained of Rizian civilization. Evans found himself leading rescue missions, evacuating desperate civilians from crumbling towers. On one such mission, he encountered a Rizian leader, Counselor Taliri. Her eyes held a mix of gratitude and wariness as she addressed him. "Captain Evans, your actions are unexpected." Evans helped her into the transport. "We've all suffered enough, Counselor. It's time to forge a new path." Back aboard the Retribution, Evans watched the expanding oceans of Regia Prime. A presence at his side, Taliri, her alien features unreadable. "My people are willing to negotiate," she said softly. "The return of Earth's water in exchange for your continued aid in restoring our world." Evans turned to her, hope and trepidation warring in his chest. "It won't be easy. There's too much fear, too much hatred on both sides." Taliri's gaze was steady. "Then we must be better than our fears, Captain, for the sake of both our worlds." As they began to discuss the framework of an unprecedented alliance, Evans couldn't shake the feeling that they stood on the precipice of a new era, one born from the ashes of unthinkable destruction, yet pregnant with the possibility of redemption. The fragile peace unraveled with terrifying speed. Evans jolted awake to blaring alarms. He rushed to the bridge, where Ava's grim face told him everything he needed to know. "Sir, we've got multiple attacks on Rizian settlements. Human extremists." Footage flickered across the screens. Burning buildings, panicked civilians fleeing through smoke-choked streets. Evans's stomach churned as he recognized the brutal efficiency of the attackers' tactics. "That's alliance training," he muttered. "Who's leading them?" Ava's voice was heavy. "General Harlan Rhodes, sir. Jillian's brother." The name hit Evans like a physical blow. He remembered Jillian's fierce loyalty, her unwavering dedication to their cause. Now her own flesh and blood sought to tear down everything they'd fought for. Before Evans could process the betrayal, another alert flashed. Chen's face appeared on the main view screen, his usually stoic features twisted with urgency. "Captain, we've got Rizian forces breaking the ceasefire. They're hitting our supply lines hard." Evans smacked his fist on the console. "Damn it! Get me Counselor Taliri now!" The Rizian leader's hologram materialized, her alien features etched with anguish. "Captain Evans, I assure you, these attacks were not sanctioned." "I believe you, Counselor," Evans cut in, "but we need to get this under control before—" A deafening explosion rocked the ship. Klaxons wailed as damage reports flooded in. "Multiple contacts," Ava shouted. Sir, it's Grayson. He's alive and he's brought an armada." Evans felt the blood drain from his face. On the tactical display, a swarm of red dots converged on the precious cryo-ships carrying Earth's stolen oceans. "All hands, battle stations," Evans barked. "Counselor, we need to get you to safety. Prepare for immediate evac to the Retribution." As the ship lurched into action, Evans caught a glimpse of Rizia Prime through the viewport. The newly formed oceans glittered in the alien sunlight, a fragile promise now teetering on the brink of annihilation. He turned to Ava, his voice low and determined. "Contact Sergeant Velasquez. We're going to need his expertise for this one." The demolitions expert materialized on the bridge, his face haggard and his eyes haunted by the ghosts of Rizia Prime. "Reporting as ordered, sir," Velasquez said, his voice rough. Evans nodded grimly. "Rico, I need you to lead the ground team for Taliri's extraction. Can you do it?" Velasquez's mind focused, but he gave a sharp nod. "Consider it done, Captain." As the Retribution plunged into the chaos of battle, Evans watched Grayson's ships swarm the cryotransports. His mind raced, searching for a strategy to turn the tide. "Sir," Chen's voice crackled over the comms, "my team is in position to board Grayson's flagship. Permission to engage?" Evans hesitated, weighing the risks. "Granted, Lieutenant, but watch your back in there." The next hours were a blur of tactical maneuvers and desperate firefights. Evans coordinated the defense of the cryoships while simultaneously overseeing Taliri's evacuation. Reports flooded in from all fronts, each more dire than the last. Then came the transmission that changed everything. Grayson's face filled the main screen, his eyes gleaming with triumph. "It's over, Evans," he sneered. "The cryoships are mine, and unless Earth bows to my demands, I'll ensure not a drop of that water ever reaches its shores." Evans felt the weight of billions of lives pressing down on him. He looked to Taliri, seeing his own anguish mirrored in her alien eyes. "What now, Captain?" she asked softly. Evans took a deep breath, knowing his next decision could spark a war that would consume both their species. "We have no choice," he said. "We have to stop Grayson before he jumps to hyperspace, whatever the cost." As the Retribution's weapons powered up, Evans couldn't shake the gnawing doubt in his gut. How had it come to this? A mission of vengeance spiraling into potential genocide. He thought of Earth's parched continents, of Rizia Prime's newborn oceans, of lives ruined and futures stolen. "All ships," he commanded, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. "Prepare to engage." The stars blurred as the Retribution surged forward, leading the charge against Grayson's stolen fleet. Evans gripped the command rail, bracing for the battle that would determine the fate of two worlds. The Retribution surged forward, its engines straining as it led the charge against Grayson's stolen fleet. Evans watched the tactical display, his teeth clenched as the distance between their forces rapidly closed. "All ships engage at will," he ordered. "Priority targets are the cryotransports. Disable their hyperdrives at all costs." The space between the fleets erupted in a storm of weapons fire. Plasma bolts and energy beams crisscrossed the void, finding their marks with devastating effect. Evans felt the deck shudder beneath his feet as the Retribution took a glancing hit. "Damage report," he barked. Ava's fingers flew over her console. "Shields holding at 60%, sir. No critical systems affected." Evans nodded, his eyes fixed on a particular blip on the tactical display. "There's Grayson's flagship. Lieutenant Chen, you're clear to begin your assault." "Understood, Captain," Chen's voice crackled over the comm. "Boarding team is go." As Chen's team launched their daring mission, Evans coordinated the main fleet's movements. The Allied human Rysian ships executed a series of complex maneuvers, gradually herding Grayson's forces toward a predetermined hyperspace exit vector. "Sir," Ava called out, "we've got multiple hyperspace signatures approaching. It's General Rhodes' extremist forces." Evans cursed under his breath. The situation was spiraling out of control faster than he could have imagined. He turned to Counselor Taliri, who stood rigid with tension beside him. "Counselor, I need you to contact any Rysian reinforcements in the area. We can't let Grayson escape with those cryoships." Taliri nodded grimly and moved to a nearby communication station. As she worked, Evans's attention was drawn back to the main view screen. A massive explosion bloomed in space as one of the Allied cruisers succumbed to concentrated fire from Grayson's forces. "Intensify forward firepower," Evans commanded. "We need to punch through their defenses." The battle raged on, a deadly dance of destruction against the backdrop of stars. Evans found himself piloting a fighter, leading a desperate strike against the cryotransport's hyperdrive capacitors. His targeting computer locked onto a vulnerable point, and he squeezed the trigger. A blinding flash erupted from the transport's aft section. "Direct hit!" Evans shouted. "One cryoship disabled, moving to the next target." But before he could line up another shot, a plasma bolt struck his fighter's wing. Alarms blared as the craft spun out of control. Evans fought with the controls, his muscles straining as he tried to stabilize the descent. "Mayday, Mayday," he called out. "This is Captain Evans. I'm going down." The Amber Desert world loomed large in his viewport as Evans struggled to slow his descent. With a bone-jarring impact, the fighter plowed into the sand, skidding to a halt in a cloud of dust and debris. Dazed but alive, Evans fumbled with his restraints and stumbled out of the wreckage. The alien sun beat down mercilessly as he surveyed his surroundings. Nothing but endless dunes in every direction. A movement caught his eye. Evans squinted, certain his mind was playing tricks on him. But as the figure drew closer, his eyes widened in disbelief. "Counselor Mela," he gasped. "But how?" The Rysian rebel leader, her scales dulled by sand and exhaustion, managed a weak smile. "It seems the universe isn't quite done with either of us, Captain Evans." As Evans helped Mela to shelter in the shadow of his crashed fighter, the battle raged on in orbit above them. He activated his emergency beacon, knowing it was only a matter of time before someone picked up the signal. Friend or foe, rescue or capture, their fate now hung in the balance of the cosmic conflict that had brought two species to the brink of annihilation. Annihilation. As the words left Evans's mouth, a blinding flash erupted from Grayson's flagship. The shockwave rocked the Retribution, sending crew members sprawling across the bridge. "Report!" Evans barked, steadying himself against a console. Ava's fingers flew across her station. "Sir, Lieutenant Chen's team has... They've done it. They've seized control of Grayson's ship and the cryotransports." A collective exhale swept through the bridge. But before relief could take hold, alarms blared anew. "Multiple detonations detected on the planet's surface," Ava announced, her voice tight with urgency. "Isotopic signatures? Captain, they're fail-safe warheads." Evans' blood ran cold. "Grayson's final act of spite," he muttered. He turned to Taliri, whose alien features were etched with horror. "Counselor, we need to evacuate any survivors immediately." As rescue teams scrambled to the surface, Evans found himself in a battered shuttle, scanning the desolate landscape. His radiation sensors screamed warnings as he touched down near a crashed fighter. He emerged into the searing heat, his suit barely shielding him from the isotopic fallout. There, huddled in the meager shade of the wreckage, were two figures, one human, one Risian. Counselor Mela? Evans rasped, recognizing the scales dulled by sand and radiation. The Risian rebel leader managed a weak nod. Captain Evans, it seems we are both out of time. As Evans helped Mela into the shuttle, she began to speak. Her voice was faint, but each word carried the weight of centuries. You deserve to know the truth, Captain, she said, about why we came to Earth, why we stole your oceans. Evans listened, his pupils dilating as Mela revealed the dark history of Risian eco-terrorism, the daring plan that led to Earth's devastation. With each confession, he felt the fury that had driven him for so long twist into something colder, more bitter. We were wrong, Mela whispered, her scales growing paler by the minute. So terribly wrong. Can you find it in your heart to forgive us, to end this cycle of vengeance? Evans stared at her, his face hardened. The faces of fallen comrades flashed before his eyes. Jillian, his crew, billions of parched Earth survivors. He thought of oceans stolen, of trust betrayed. No, he said, his voice hoarse. I can't. Mela's eyes dimmed, filled with a sadness deeper than the stolen seas. As radiation sickness took hold, Evans fought to stay conscious. He activated the shuttle's emergency beacon, knowing it was a race against time. His vision blurred, the edges of the world growing dark. The last thing Evans saw before unconsciousness claimed him was Lieutenant Chen's face, etched with concern and illuminated by the shuttle's harsh lights. Then there was only darkness. Chen stared down at his mentor's lifeless form, grief and shock warring within him. He turned to the broken Risian counselor, her scales now ashen and flaking. Please, Mela whispered, her voice barely audible. End it or save me. The choice is yours, Lieutenant. Chen's hand hovered over his sidearm. In that moment, the weight of two civilizations seemed to rest on his shoulders. He thought of Evans, of Earth, of oceans lost and found, of mercy and vengeance and the razor-thin line between. With a deep breath, Chen made his choice.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.